What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my hilarious co-host, Alex Wilson. And in today's episode, we are reacting to the New York Giants signing a wide receiver. Finally, they brought in some wide receiver help. We've been waiting since week 4 when Malik Neighbors, unfortunately, suffered his torn ACL, but the Giants had not made any moves to bring in a wide receiver to this point until yesterday afternoon. They signed the legendary Ray-Ray McCloud to their practice squad. Now, we're going to go ahead and react to this signing and discuss what it means for the Giants, what our expectations are for Ray-Ray McCloud, if we really have much of any at all, and just have a conversation about what the Giants should do here when they still do need receiver help despite adding Ray-Ray McCloud, and they only have a few weeks to spare until the trade deadline. So we'll go ahead and waste no more time and dive right into it. Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And what are your thoughts on the Giants signing Ray-Ray McCloud?
Yeah, I mean, listen, is it much? No. Is it Ray-Ray? Yes. And I don't think that he's going to be a game changer for the Giants. I don't think he's going to come in and, really make a big difference. And as you mentioned, the trade deadline coming up in a couple of weeks here, I think that, the Giants still have an opportunity to go get some pieces or a piece. And, the report, I think from Jeremy Fowler, came out yesterday, I think, suggested that, teams are still weighing the idea of trading receivers. Jacoby Myers, I think, will be traded, but I don't think the Giants want a rental per se. I think they want someone with a little bit more control. It's like, what's the point of getting a rental guy that's going to end up leaving, or you have to pay big money? And Jacoby Myers kind of gives you the vibe that he's going to demand WR1 money, and no one's going to give it to him, and his free agency is going to drag for months until he eventually realizes, I'm not getting that money. Or maybe some injuries happen and he does get that money. Who knows? I don't think Myers is a great fit because of what his ask is and really what the Giants are getting in the long term. But then you have like guys like Waddle, who they're saying like, we're not trading Waddle. Like every loss and every dumb thing Mike McDaniel says gets you a little bit closer to trading Jalen Waddle for the right price. So we'll see what happens there. I think they're going to fire him anyway, so they're going to have a fresh start and maybe they'll draft a quarterback. But you have other players out there like Chris Olave. There's reports saying the Saints are trying to sign him to an extension. Well, I don't buy it personally. It's possible it happens. I don't really buy it because, why wouldn't that have already happened if they're trying to get him to extend now? Like, what's the difference in money? The Saints only have so much. They're in the whole $15 million next year. So, looking at the trade market, we'll see what happens, how things unfold. Of course, the Giants kind of have to win games. There's no point in bringing in a rental if you're not winning games. I think if you kind of get back into the season here a little bit, you can justify, getting someone that has some long-term control. But, guys like Ray-Ray McCloud, interesting player. Like I said, signed off a practice squad. He's 29 years old, former 6th-round pick by the Bills. So maybe that's the connection, with Joe Shane and Brian Daboll. 2018, McCloud was on the Bills. So, there's your connection to him. And, Anthony, looking at him as a player, what are you expecting? I don't even know if we'll see him play at all this season.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll see him at all. Listen, what am I expecting? I'm expecting him to be a quality contributor on the practice squad. Maybe he gets in there and he plays as WR4 and he gets some reps sometime later in the season. This is simply just a depth signing, though. I don't want New York Giants fans to see, hey, Giants signed the wide receiver and think, oh, okay, bet we got a new playmaker. No, we got a new depth piece. We got a guy who's going to be behind Jalen Hyatt on the depth chart. That's really what the Giants got here with Ray-Ray McCloud. He was a healthy inactive for the last 2 games with the Atlanta Falcons, and then they just went ahead and released him, and now he's on the Giants practice squad. So 29 years old. This is not a player with upside. This is a player who's been in the league for 8 years. He was a former 6th-round pick, as Alex mentioned. Yes, last season he had his best season because he had a career-high 13 starts and 17 full games played, put up 62 receptions for 686 yards and 1 touchdown, only the 2nd touchdown of his 8-year career. And one thing that you do notice about him, Alex, he has a 9.6 average yards per reception. He is essentially Wan'Dale Robinson without the extra burst, right? So that's what I see from Ray-Ray McCloud. I think that this is the Giants saying, hey, behind Darius Slayton, we have a guy who plays a similar role to Darius Slayton and Jalen Hyatt, not comparing their talent, just the skill set and the role that they play. But behind Wan'Dale Robinson, well, we don't really have anybody with a similar skill set, do we? You think about the guys who might be slot receivers, who might be underneath kind of shifty options, run after the catch guys. It's Wan'Dale Robinson, and then I don't know who else it is, but Ray-Ray McCloud at least does have a very similar playing style. And he's a similar height and weight. He's 5'9". He's like 180 or whatever he is. So I just think this is adding depth at a position where you didn't have any. And that's how the New York Giants probably felt about their receiving core, and in particular, the slot receiver position. So I really think he's just a backup for Wan'Dale. I doubt we actually see Ray-Ray McCloud play it all this season unless we suffer more injuries in the receiving core.
Yeah, suffering more injuries in this receiving core. You're going from bad to worse. Wan'Dale's been the primary guy. I mean, I want to see more Daniel Bellinger this week. I was really impressed by him against Denver. So he's a guy that I think could see his role expand.
Yeah, the Giants are going to need to lean more on the tight ends because their receiving core is so battered and not good. But Daniel Bellinger, I believe, was limited in practice yesterday, dealing with a neck injury. So hopefully he's okay to suit up on Sunday. He was certainly an impact player last week against the Broncos. He was an impact player for sure against the New Orleans Saints as well in week 5. Daniel Bellinger, low-key, has been the Giants' most consistent tight end, I would say, at least when targeted. He's sure-handed. He doesn't drop the ball. So I think when you're looking at this Giants receiving core, if they're not going to make a trade for a wide receiver, then I think you're just going to have to ask more of your tight ends, and you're going to have to play more 12 personnel, and you're going to have to ask Theo Johnson to take the butter off his fingers and to actually complete the process of the reception, and you're going to have to ask Daniel Bellinger to play more snaps. I think that's honestly the way that the Giants are going to have to go about this unless they do bring in a wide receiver. So it'll be interesting, but there is an element to this, Alex. While I want to see the Giants surround Jackson Dart with talent this year, and I want to see them develop him and get him some serious playmakers to help him develop, they are also a team that's 2-5. They lose this week, they're 2-6. That's pretty much going to put the nail in the coffin, I think, because they're going to fall way far behind in the division at 2-6 versus potentially 3-5. And at that point, are you really going to trade a top 100 draft pick potentially for a wide receiver? Probably not. You're probably going to turn the page and say, hey, let's see what we can get from this team for the rest of the season. Let's evaluate Dart. Let's get him the best situation that we can, but then let's go all in on him in the 2026 offseason. And I think that's where the Giants are now after that loss to Denver. They're just one step away from saying, let's turn the page. Let's not even try and get cute at this deadline. Let's just think about adding help for him next year.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility. Look, the truth of the matter is this is about the future. Even if the Giants fight their way back into this season against all odds, with Burns out yesterday and Adebo out for a couple weeks and Holland out this week, like if they fight their way back into the mix here, they, obviously have a lot to prove. They're trying to set a standard. They're trying to change a narrative, really, from a losing football team to one that can win. And I think Jackson Dart eats him alive, really. To lose football games, and the Giants just don't have a good enough roster right now to support him. They have some good players, but they are weak in some specific areas, right? So like they could use another interior guard, like they could use a couple of playmakers. Having Neighbors would have been huge for Jackson Dart's development and the confidence he could have built this year. That was a really big blow to this Giants team. I think Dart is winning and succeeding without his, not just his, but one of the most premier playmakers in the sport. So that loss, the fact that Dart is bouncing back from that loss and performing the way that he is and managing to score 32 points against the best defense in football, we need to understand just how rare that is. Yeah, he's made a couple of mistakes. Yeah, he's made some rookie, mishaps, but that was expected. I don't think anyone expected that the Broncos players were going to come out after the game and say, yeah, that Dart kid's legit. Yeah, that Dart kid can ball. Like, that is a humongous amount of respect that he gained from the best defense in football, saying, okay, that kid actually's got it. After the whole week of trash talking, they came out and had good things to say about him. So I think that's something that I don't overlook, but he's doing it without all the bells and whistles. Imagine if he does have all the bells and whistles. The Giants have to go into next offseason understanding one thing. They have to make sure that offensive line improves, not regresses. That means Jermaine Illuminor needs to be extended. It means they have to allocate some resources, probably a draft pick at interior guard spot. Probably you might be looking at a second round guard. I know we're going BPA, but if it naturally falls that way, great. You still have Marcus Bowe that you're developing. That could be something. Maybe you want to cross train him at guard and see what he could do. That's also an option. And you want to add another big time receiver, whether it's trade or whether it's in free agency or whether it's the draft. So the Giants know we addressed our defense. Adebo's Holland, they're under contract. Burns under contract. Dexter, Kayvon's here next year. Carter's a rookie. Like your defense is pretty much the same defense you're going to have next year, outside of maybe a couple of minor changes. You're getting Micah McFadden back most likely. He'll probably be extended on a very cheap deal because he got injured this season. The offense is priority number one. The defense is pretty much set. You can get some guys for cheap to fill some gaps, but that offense, Anthony, is like if you build the bells and whistles around Jackson Dart, like look at Josh Allen. They've basically been throwing him no receivers for years now. You know what I mean? Or guys that have been injury prone or just vets who are not happy with their role. He does it with basically nothing. Jackson Dart just showed us that he can do it with basically nothing. You give him all the bells and whistles, you're gonna be pretty excited about it. So I'm not comparing him to Josh Allen, but the one thing I do think is quite similar is their ability to do stuff off script. Like they both have that special talent.
Yeah, Jackson Dart definitely is a special talent. And let's relax. It's not nothing that Jackson Dart is working with. He just got Ray-Ray McCloud, Alex. He's got something now. No, obviously.
Ray-Ray McBooty, you mean?
Okay. No, Ray-Ray McCloud is here. We are saved. Now, the one tidbit of information, though, that I am going to add here before we do wrap up this episode is just regarding the trade deadline, because you mentioned that at the beginning of the episode, Jalen Waddle saying that he's probably not going to get traded. Actually, Jeremy Fowler indicated that that's not completely ruled out. I'm going to read you exactly what he wrote in his report yesterday. He said, quote, "The Dolphins are still getting calls on wide receiver Jalen Waddle, but don't have plans to trade him at this point. That can always change." So, end quote there. A lot of fans, I posted a mock trade for Jalen Waddle today on Fireside Giants Instagram, and a lot of fans said, the Dolphins aren't trading him. There was a report yesterday. Go read the report, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, hey, guys, you stopped reading after the first sentence. Read it into the second sentence. He said the plans could change. Jalen Waddle is still possibly being traded. So, the New York Giants are probably one of those teams that have made those calls. That much we know for a fact, actually. It's been reported that they have called the Dolphins. Let's see what happens here over the next couple of weeks, because honestly, I think that Joe Shane and Brian Dable back against the wall, we're talking about it. Are they going to turn the page, look to 2026? They don't have a 2026 if they don't win more games in 2025. So I do think they're going to try and make one more big move for a wide receiver before the deadline. But of course, we will update you guys on everything that happens for the Giants as we approach this trade deadline. And we will have more conversations about Ray-Ray McCloud and all the other Giants wide receivers right here on Fireside Giants. So make sure you leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. Comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you listen to Apple or Spotify, make sure you leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. And let me know how often you want Alex to keep screaming during the intro, because it definitely picked that up earlier, and I can't wait to hear it. So we'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go New York Giants.
Perfect.